How do you create a character like that?
There is only the absolute.
Oh, that's grotesque. Don't stare. You'll only encourage it.
Let's talk about it. When someone asks me why I play D&D, I usually don't tell them it's because I get to be someone else in a world that's way more interesting than ours. But I love creating and playing characters. Characters are the focus of D&D and any other piece of art that tells a story. Characters do things in their own way. This drives the story, which lets us experience moral dilemmas and interesting situations we otherwise wouldn't. Gives it an extra kick if a character is well written and thought out.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Masterpiece. Characters that feel real can make beautiful nonsense like magical lands or alien space exploration within our grasp, the fragile hands of us mere mortals. But how are such characters born? In this video, we'll analyze some of our favorites and share what we learned about creating realistic characters through years of experience in writing and DMing. What makes a character feel real, and can you create one yourself? Spoiler alert! You can. Heads up, we'll be analyzing characters from Baldur's Gate 3, so if you still haven't played it, I only have one question. Why? Now, why Baldur's Gate? Because it's a story-driven game with well-written characters. And these well-written characters are exactly what makes the storyline great. If you took the characters out, you just have a world without a narrative. A pretty world, but a boring one. Now picture that world with NPCs, but without the companions. No knives at each other's throats, no getting horny over blood, and no nuclear threat due to the lack of magic item Lunchables. Now that's a lonely road to Baldur's Gate, and much fewer reasons to walk it. Unless you're into that.
Stop it.
Baldur's Gate has very colorful companions, each with their own strong quirks, desires, needs, and unique backgrounds. The result? Millions of obsessed fans and an internet full of fan art. All kinds of fan art. And cult-like opinions why some characters are godsends, while others should die. Those are good characters, and by good, I don't mean characters that are necessarily liked. Personally, I've killed Lizelle in like 84 of my Baldur's Gate playthroughs, not because I thought she's a bad character. I tried to like her, but I just couldn't. In D&D, I played characters I didn't like, and I hated the decisions they made. And it was glorious. The mere fact that a fictional character made me strongly feel a certain way means it's a good character. Joffrey from Game of Thrones is a great example of a brilliantly written but detestable character. And when the little shit died, half the world celebrated like an actual tyrant was overthrown.
You are dead!
The point is that a real character is believable and not necessarily nice or easy to talk to. Now, we don't suggest you make asshole characters for your D&D games.
No, stop, don't do it.
If you create a character that nobody likes, you might ruin fun for other people at the table.
God, please, no!
If you want a character that's a bit polarizing and edgy, that's fine. Just make sure that they belong in a party and are fun for others to play along with. Perfect example of what I'm talking about is Astarion from Baldur's Gate. He's edgy, a bit of a murder hobo, and has just enough empathy to kill the last puppy on Earth. But he's entertaining, has a reason to stay with the party, and most importantly, his story makes sense. So the question is, how did Larian do it? Let's break everyone's favorite Van Tram down, shall we?
I'm going to fucking kill you.
Here's the basic story. You meet Astarion outside the crashed Nautiloid ship. As you approach, he assumes you're working with the creatures that captured you, and threatens to slice your throat open. In fact, he sees an opportunity to explore these tadpoles together, if you'll have him in your party, that is.
You idiot! What have you done?
If you accept, Astarion travels with you, SMHing and scoffing at any acts of kindness and charity that you might dare to indulge in. All the while getting excited to the point of nearly creaming his pantaloons about mindless murder and destruction.
All right. To a mountain of corpses.
Hey yo, what the?
So far checks off most items of your first D&D character list. Trauma, edginess, amnesia, mild, elf, murder hobo, dead parents, kind of. Oh, and don't forget the visual. Anyways, after watching Astarion wander off into the night during a full moon and confronting him about a few corpses of animals that have been bled dry, the pale elf confesses to being a vampire spawn. Oh, and animals are gross, so yeah, he wants the real thing. After a bit of talking, things get more interesting. You learn that Astarion is an ex-magistrate turned vampire spawn against his will. He used to seduce and lure people to be kidnapped by his vampire master, Cazador. The same master, you learn, made Astarion eat nothing but rotten rats, collected vampire spawn as sacrifices to ascend, and continues to hunt your companions to fulfill his tyrannical plans.
I wouldn't be so sure. My master was a prolific poet.
The psychological scarring shows, and Astarion's maliciousness suddenly makes a lot of sense. He doesn't hate acts of kindness or charity because he's a bad person. He hates them because such acts show weakness and require trust. He can't afford to be vulnerable in front of others because he's been made nothing but vulnerable against his own will. His cruel and sometimes borderline sadistic acts portray his rebellion against the lack of control and power he has over his life.
Please. I can't do this alone. Fine.
Astarion is a slave to circumstances who hasn't known anything but cruelty and torture for a century. He'd nearly forgotten what his life even was before, or even what he actually looked like.
I've never even seen this face. Not since it grew fangs and my eyes turned red.
But his story arc doesn't end there. After all, fate has a sense of humor. The tadpole, considered a curse by many, gave Astarion a taste of freedom. Sunlight no longer hurt him, he could walk into people's houses uninvited, and his master couldn't directly control him anymore. And here Astarion gets a shot at truly being free, once and for all. With your help, Astarion can confront Cazador. He can either take his master's place in ascending or just kill him and release the prisoners instead. In other words, Astarion can free himself from tyranny by becoming the tyrant. Or he can end the vicious cycle altogether. But how that pans out is up to you, the player. Now that is a well-written character. I'll be honest, Astarion is not my favorite one either, but his story has every ingredient that makes up a believable, morally flexible character. So, what's the recipe here?
Yeah, boy.
First, we start with the base of personality. Second, a dash of distinct needs, opinions, and desires based on his experience. 3, a handful of knives. We'll talk about what those are in a second. And lastly, a pinch of room for change. These four ingredients are the core at creating the perfect little characters. Now you might be wondering,
is it really that simple?
Just like a cooking recipe. Simple? Yes. Easy? Probably not. But like any celebrity chef would tell you, anyone can do it.
Fucking donkey!
And now we have our ingredients, let's see how we can use them, one by one. Everyone has a personality, unless you're a Marvel character.
Don't do it! This was fun! No!
And all personality means is, this is how I react to and reflect on what happens. A personality. There are two sides to every personality. And I don't mean a disorder when they split. There's a part of us that is inherent and doesn't change much. We have certain tendencies from birth. We don't choose these, and different things naturally draw us. Another part of a personality is conditioned. Things we learn from the experiences we have. Personalities form over time, and that's why it can be important to know what your character's been through. Sometimes conditioning is so powerful that it completely overwhelms our inherent traits. And that's backstory. Your character was a happy, fair, life-loving child, And now they're extorting villagers for money. What happened? Now, I'm not suggesting you write an entire book about your character's childhood trauma. I mean, you can, but just having a general picture of what happened to your character and how they were treated in the past can give you answers in a lot of roleplay situations. Astarion, for example, was a magistrate. He's a city boy with a palate for nicer things in life.
I would have liked more for my trouble than a pat on the head and vinegar for wine.
He remembers what good quality wine is. He himself admits that all those years of torture wiped most of his memories about his past life anyways. But he remembers enough. Being reduced to a vampire's puppet and drinking rotten, rodent blood for a century would destroy anyone. But this humiliation hits Astarion much harder because of who he used to be. A magistrate, a free man, a connoisseur of good taste. And that's why he's even more motivated to break his master's control over him, even if Cassador terrifies him more than light from 1,000 suns. Imagine you grew up poor on the streets of Neverwinter. Is poverty and the lack of power something you want to avoid at all costs? Or being a street urchin in a city divided by classes is something you're proud of? A simple difference. But a difference between a thief and a guardsman at the end of the day. How you act in life stems naturally from your backstory and personality. Same goes for your character. And you don't have to have a military-grade psychological case here. Just ask yourself or the character these 3 questions. First, what is something they couldn't live without? It could be their faith, memories of home, comfort at the bottom of the moonshine bottle, or even their pain that they fell in love with. Second, how do they think the world works? Is it live and let die? Survival of the fittest? Do the powerful control the weak? Does the classist Asmodeus-esque system strives to exploit the workers and separate them from the means of production? And third, what is something they would sail the 9 seas to get? Is it riches, vengeance, power, or simply inner peace? You can get as specific as you want here. I once made a character whose entire purpose was to make the nobility of Waterdeep wear clown noses. But if you can answer these 3 questions even a tiny bit, you have a character with needs, opinions, and desires. Another method to create strong needs and desires for your character is to describe what they're used to, and then take it away. How messy or psychological you want that is up to you. But I can guarantee you Astarion would have been a wildly different character if he was a beggar before becoming a vampire spawn. A character's general likes and dislikes give flavor to interactions. It makes them do things you yourself wouldn't. Maybe your character is used to being surrounded by people, so much so that whenever they are left alone, they don't know what to do with themselves. Maybe your character was used to living in a palace where maids satisfy their every whim. How would they act if they were told to sleep on a bedroll under the stars? Those are all interesting situations to explore and conversations to have, and they definitely make your character feel more real. Okay, I get what you're saying, but every time I sit down to create something like that, I just freeze. That's alright, there are tools for that. You can look up a list of ideals, bonds and flaws online and start there. Here's one such generator you can use to randomize some basic truths about your character. Then, to expand on them, ask the question, why? Is that part of the character inherent or conditioned? Try it. You'll be surprised what weird character combinations you can come up with. If you had in your possession a final piece of a weapon that could level cities to the ground, would you just hand it over to a bad guy? Probably not. But what if this bad guy held your beloved spouse and children at gunpoint? Life is about making decisions, and a lot of decisions are not easy to make. Playing a D&D character well is about making decisions from their point of view, and interesting characters tend to find themselves in difficult situations. Why is that? 6 years ago, a user named JimBaby posted a theory on Reddit they refer to as knife theory. It argues that it's important to include a decent number of knives when building a character. These knives are something that could escalate a conflict or a situation and make it personal. This could be a threat of losing a prized possession, a loved one, or a pet. It could also be a ghost from the past, like a crime, a contract, or an oath your character was bound to. Anything that haunts your character or may come to haunt them in the future can be a knife. And including knives in a backstory is to spin stories and create plot twists for that character. Seriously, if you don't believe us, go and read some comments under that Reddit post. You'll be amazed how spicy knives can get. The more interesting the knives, the more people tend to have fun playing their characters. Let's go back to our previous example. As tragic as Astarion's backstory is, it's interesting. The vampire spawn has quite a few shanks teasing his ribs. He's the missing piece of the ritual his master wants to complete, and he's being chased by guilt and ghosts from the past of what he's done to survive. And he's also being hunted by people who had their children stolen by vampires. This creates a lot of room for struggle, and struggle is fun. It opens many turns his life can take. This uncertainty is what makes Astarion's story interesting. And it's all because fate holds many knives. He's back. Besides his extreme beliefs and eccentric personality, Astarion is still a person. And people change.
Yeah, that's pretty true. That's true, and yeah, that's true.
A common issue at any D&D table are the characters with the my way or the highway attitude. Sure, it's fun to play someone who takes no shit from anyone, but D&D is not a single-player game, and neither is life. You meet someone, spend time with them, and you come out a different person. The same with going through times in life, or just traveling to places that are just different from what you're used to. It is called the perspective. Every good character has one, and it's way more interesting if that perspective has room to breathe, just like fine wine. Past his sturdy mask of I don't care about anyone else, Astarion's deep in conflict. He is not proud of the things he's done for his master. That becomes evident through some dialogue options, or when you meet Astarion's victims in Cassador's dungeon.
Then you destroyed me.
Here Astarion has two real choices in his arc. He can either stop the ritual his master started and face his past mistakes, or he can take his master's place and ascend himself. The room for change here is twofold. He can either seek redemption or double down on his evil tendencies. Whenever there's room for such choice, your characters will come across dilemmas in their paths. And if you want to play a character that feels real, well, there's hardly anything more real than that. Here we even recommend talking to your DM about this. Discuss how you see your character and what growth you'd find interesting to explore. I did this with one of my players recently who's playing a demon inside a person's body. They said they wanted to explore a character that's primal and feral, someone who's constantly drawn to embrace their demonic tendencies, but also had room to become human. Last session, this demon learned that life as a human is limited, and I've never seen someone roleplay the discovery of fear before. Imagine you forget just to relearn that your existence holds but by a thread. The person playing the demon loved it, and so did the rest of the table.
I love it!
And experience made possible only because the character had room to change. At the end of the day, such experiences are why we play characters that are different from us. It makes D&D an exploration and not a repetition. We had an idea of a step-by-step character creation that follows this guide. It didn't make it into the video because it was getting too long, but if you'd like to see us making a character, following our own advice, let us know in the comments. Hope that was useful for you, or at least entertaining. If it was, leave a like or even subscribe. Or don't. Not like I care or anything. Please subscribe.